It's mating season for the Decapodians, and Dr. John Zoidberg is feeling frisky. His increasingly active and erratic behavior drives the rest of the Planet Express crew to take him home to Decapod 10, where he will hopefully find a mate. Unfortunately, even among his people, Zoidberg is a loser and fails miserably. By the end of the day, he's the only one without a partner. It's only then that he runs into his old classmate and former crush, Edna, but she rejects him too, breaking his heart once more. Fry convinces Zoidberg to try romancing Edna in the human way, and begins instructing him despite Leela's protestations. Bizarrely, it seems to work, and Edna begins to fall for the good doctor. But when Leela lets slip that Zoidberg's sweet words were really what Fry told him to say, Edna switches to an attempt to seduce Fry instead. As Fry tries to push the Decapodian woman off of him, Zoidberg enters the room and, misinterpreting the situation, challenges Fry to the ceremonial death battle known as Clawplach. In the arena, the pair struggle against one another, and in the end, it appears that Fry will emerge victorious. But at the last moment, Fry relents and drops his weapon. He addresses the crowd, declaring that Zoidberg is his friend and that he refuses to take his life. Unfortunately for him, Zoidberg himself is unmoved, and still incensed, he attacks Fry once more. As they return to their pitched battle, Leela intervenes and stops them. The audience is gone. The time for mating has arrived, and Edna herself has gone off with another man. Zoidberg has missed his chance. Mere hours later, as the Planet Express crew walks the beach, Fry asks why the seagulls have started to gather. Zoidberg explains that once Decapodians have mated and laid their eggs, they die. Even his beloved Edna remains in this world no longer. Back on the ship, as Dr. Zoidberg patches up Fry's wounds from their battle, he apologizes for how he behaved. Love and jealousy can drive a person mad, after all. Fry is receptive to Zoidberg's apology, and all is forgiven. The Doctor may not have found love on this trip, but his bond with Fry is stronger than ever. Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past.
Okay, to start us off, I just need to say, Fry's Bavarian cream dog disgusts me.
Yeah, there's so many different things you could put in there that would be a better choice.
Nacho cheese, yeah.
Ketchup, mustard, relish.
Chili.
Yeah, I was gonna say chili.
Ooh, chili sounds good.
Sauerkraut, theoretically.
Yeah.
Just anything but cream.
Cream cheese. Cream cheese, maybe.
Ugh. Why would you put cream in a hot dog? It's just... ew. I'm not even going to get into the self-microwaving bit because that's just ridiculous, but just the concept of cream inside a hot dog, just, visceral revulsion.
Like, self-heating food is something that exists, but I don't know if it could ever be applied to a hot dog.
So, yeah, this episode is really just kind of one long sex joke.
Yeah, honestly, Zoidberg's whole mating plot, it seems really artificial to me that alien species like the Decapodians would divide themselves strictly along gender lines in exactly the same way that humans do. Like, you'd think that being aliens, they could be more unique in this regard.
Well, they are rather unique in the fact that this is taken... It's this weird combination of tradition and just completely utilitarian. Because, like, they talk about having, like romance and everything, like, mating for love instead of for like, financial support or anything. But when it comes right down to it, yeah, they literally are aliens just trying to breed, which is what I suppose a species would do. So you have this kind of this disconnect between, like, the classic rom-com, where the guy is, like, trying to help the other friend seduce the girl, but then he has to lie about what he's able to do and stuff like that, which is really that. But then it's put against this backdrop of it is purely a utilitarian practice.
Yeah, like, every time that they talk about males and females, I'm just thinking about the Ferengi, and not in a good way.
Is the Ferengi. I also got a bit of like the Ponfar, where they go nuts when they need to breed, which we definitely saw at the beginning of this episode. Which let's talk about the gym jokes.
Yeah, the gym scene was just, it had a lot of really great jokes. The people on the exercise bikes trying to speed away from Zoidberg.
You can't go anywhere.
Yeah, because they're both like that. That's great.
They're literally called stationary bikes.
I just love
Yeah.
the joke of windowless rooms for ugly exercisers. Because, like, yeah, they're out there in the front of the window looking out at other people, and of course they're all the young, attractive people that are working out and just kind of flexing to show themselves off. And it's like, if you don't want to be in the front of the window, if you're ugly, you can be in the back.
Or there was that background gag of this woman in a Kegel sizer machine.
The Kegel sizer, which, I mean, you have to kind of know what that is, but wow. But to be fair, they had a penis joke a few minutes later, so
yeah,
equal opportunity.
Yeah, it's a very funny scene, but it does have one joke that just makes me groan. Like that, there was a very fat phobic joke that was just like the whole punchline is just haha, fat people are gross, and it's just like, come on, guys, you're better than that.
Yeah.
Like, don't low-hanging fruit. And also, when you make fun of fat people at the gym, you're not being helpful. Like, they're at the gym. They're trying.
It's like making fun of a guy who's unemployed at an employment office.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, they could have just given the guy, I guess, huge muscles and be ridiculously unproportionate. Or, you know, just not have Amy be grossed out.
Yeah, honestly, in a setting like that, what you're describing probably would have been even funnier.
Or even a weird alien body.
Or that, well, I mean, there was that background gag of the alien with like a dozen legs just spinning around.
Just a wheel.
It's like that one demon with just the lion wheel.
Oh,
I think Buer, I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Buer,
yeah. Honestly, though, like, back with the whole mating thing, just, why do the Decapodians have boobs? Just, they're shellfish.
Which is kind of funny because they have, I was going to point that out, is that they managed to kind of give Zoidberg fat rolls in his shell. Which, I mean, I suppose it's supposed to be like kind of scoots on the bottom of the shell, but it looks like it's fat rolls, which I'm sure was part of the inspiration for it.
Yeah, it's weird, but honestly, especially with the boobs, they're not mammals. Why do the women have boobs?
Like, A, they're not mammals, as you stated, but also, they don't live to raise their children anyway, so there's especially no point for them.
Yeah, that too.
Just extra fat for the seagulls to eat.
Well, maybe it's used to attract a mate.
Except if they're not mammals, why would they have evolved to be attracted to that in the first place? It doesn't make any sense.
I'm sure that's part of the joke. It's just, it's a cartoon. Who gives a shit, you know?
I mean, I guess, just like, I want to say, like, sci-fi writers, if you want to write some, like, alien species, like, who classify themselves in some way, come up with some other arbitrary criteria that isn't just male-female. Like, come up with something new, or, like, give them some other arbitrary thing, because it'll help make them feel more alien. It's really good world building, and just, I don't know, it's more creative, and it doesn't carry a lot of the same baggage we get here. To be fair, it is weird that humans divide along that specific line as just in general, too.
I don't think it's specifically weird for humans. It's kind of standard for most terrestrial animals.
I don't mean,
at least vertebrates.
Oh, sure. I don't mean that it's, you know, a meaningless distinction, you know, physical differences.
Physically, but socially.
Yeah, socially. Just the fact that we divide so evenly along gender lines, or attempt to anyway, because, I mean, you know, trans people exist. Just, it really does feel completely arbitrary that we chose that specific thing as our dividing line.
Yeah, like, I love coming up with different, like, alien culture and biology headcanons, specifically Saiyans, and I'm like, they don't have gender in their culture, but some random person replied to me saying, well, they have males and females. Like, that's just a physical sex, you know? They don't have to have it culturally.
Yeah, gender is an entirely cultural construct, but that's not really my point. Well, actually, it's part of the point, but, you know. I also want to bring up just, like, Zoidberg's behavior at the beginning of the episode, just the whole idea that like his newfound virility is making him like almost violent, and just this goes back to this idea that masculinity equals macho aggression, and that is just really bad. Like, when we say toxic masculinity, that is exactly what we are talking about.
Isn't that kind of exactly what an overabundance of testosterone does?
Not necessarily.
Have you heard the term mad as a March hare?
There you go.
Like, mating urges doesn't necessarily equal violent aggression.
Not necessarily, but
it doesn't necessarily mean not.
Yeah, it is seen throughout a lot of different animals.
Yeah, my point is just like when you like emphasize that and make that into a whole thing, that's what leads to the kind of macho bro culture that we have that is just so toxic.
Yeah, there's a difference because, like, even if we had biological urges that strong, we also have higher intelligence and consciousness. So we can, actually, control ourselves more so.
But ultimately, what is Zoidberg working towards? He's working towards breeding so he can die. So it's not exactly they're not exactly saying that this is the proper way of doing things.
Yeah, that's fair, and that actually does come to, like, at the end, where I was just like, you mean you have to choose between a life without sex and a hideous death? Tough call. It really isn't!
It depends on who you are, depends on what you're looking for. I mean, because his species, that for many animals, that literally is all they need to do. Like, if you look at, like, fruit flies or insects that live for only a week or so, that is exactly what they need to do. They need to breed so that their genetic code can pass on. That's the entire point of genetic breeding, to continue the lifespan of the animal, or to continue the lifespan of the species.
Oh, sure. I'm just saying that, like, Fry saying that that's a difficult decision. It's like, it's not. Like, I if the price of sex was dying, I could very comfortably go my whole life without it. Just not worth it.
Which, of course, is the joke. It's like he's a human guy. Of course they're going to lean into that stereotype. They're comedy writers. That's exactly the joke that you go for when you're doing this sort of thing.
It's a bit too easy.
It's too easy not to do.
Actually, I have to bring up this line that I wrote down because it just confused me. When Zoidberg says near the beginning of the episode, "For some reason I'm as frisky as a squid on Tuesday." What does that even mean?
I don't know, it might be a Decapodian thing.
Yeah, it could be just a non sequitur.
Oh, I'm sure. It's just, I'm trying to find the connection, and I can't think of anything. It's just one of those things that's just so bizarre, you just kind of have to laugh.
Speaking of funny things, I love the car design, how it scuttles like a crab.
Yes, that was clever. Like, honestly, Decapod 10 just is really creative and cool visually. Like, you've got this whole sand castle design for all of their architecture. It's great.
Yeah.
Speaking of lines that were just that really caught me off guard, I was I am simply looking for a female swollen with eggs to accept my genetic material. It's like, you and me both, brother. Because the way you look at it, it is kind of, you could almost interpret this as sort of the male incel culture of, like, that's kind of what Zoidberg is. He is socially awkward, and his entire purpose is trying to find somebody to breed with.
Well, let's not equate social awkwardness to being a creepy fuckboy necessarily.
But there is a lot of overlap.
Some, but
I'm not saying the one is the cause of the other. They are both definitely symptoms of the same underlying issue, but...
Well, I mean, it's very easy to be socially awkward without being creepy with women. I am socially awkward and try my best to avoid being creepy with women.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. I think more it's used as an excuse by incels, like, oh, we were so, like, socially awkward and isolated, nobody liked us, and that's why I'm like this now. it's an excuse for them.
Yeah, I think it's less being socially awkward and more just they kind of pick up on the whole vibe. Like, you can kind of tell when someone's raising red flags. But we're getting too into this. The mating display amuses me because we have Zoidberg just saying, this will make me, this ought to make me stand out. And then he just does the exact same thing as every other male. And yeah, that's the joke, but it's also a perfect, even if possibly unintended, takedown of what we define as masculinity. Like, going back to that whole toxic bro culture, it's just like, you see what we define as masculine, and it's all the same. It's all of these guys just acting exactly the same, and it's cringe. There's no other word for it. It makes me cringe.
Well, there's also a bit of a joke in there that they're building these sand castles with like shells on them, and it's like, that's pretty much, if you look at like a decorator crab, that's kind of exactly what they do. They just kind of build these displays, these houses that they're trying to show like what they've collected or what they're able to do, and that's supposed to attract a mate, which within crab culture that may actually work. But I just like that they take this kind of this somewhat realistic take on this sort of thing. It was like, where if there was a species of intelligent crabs that were based very similarly on what crabs or other sea animals do, this is what their mating rituals would be similar to. So I feel like they did a lot of research on looking at like kind of goofy things that other animals do in their mating rituals, and they kind of integrate that into a more realistic setting.
I was more reminded of, I think it's rockhopper penguins that like grab a bunch of pebbles and arrange it into like sort of a nest.
Which is also similar, yeah.
I could be remembering wrong, though.
I wonder if any of these animals would find my massive collection of books intriguing. Maybe that's the human collector, like, mating display equivalent, just collecting books
or movies or video games or action figures people. Or show off all your Pokemans.
I need to get back to shiny hunting for Pheromosa.
Look at my living decks.
To be fair, if a cute girl showed me her collection of Pokemans, I would probably be smitten myself.
And they're all shiny.
I'm trying to get a living dex and go, which is not easy when you have to buy more storage.
Oh, jeez.
And plus all the other special event Pokemon. But that's off topic.
Yeah. So, Fry's whole fake like you're in love thing, much like his Bavarian cream dog, also just disgusts me.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
And really the sad thing is that it works.
Yeah, he becomes the Serrano to Zoidberg's Christian, and somehow it works. And it just... I am so uncomfortable with this whole thing, just because, like, you get stuff like Fry saying, you don't want to know how her day was, ask anyway. If you're not genuinely interested in your romantic partner, get a new partner!
And there's, of course, the cynicism there that she does respond to it, and although I suppose she is kind of in the wrong here, that she ends up going for Fry anyways. Oh, it's Fry that said those nice things about me. I guess I'll like him instead. It's like, but Fry wasn't trying to do... Honestly, she seems like kind of the villain in this episode.
I think the villain in this episode, honestly, is just... It's the villain in this episode really is just the pressure to have sex, I would say.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's the social pressure.
It's an interesting take on it.
Like, it is honestly just really revolting what even our society does with regards to sex. Where, like, we basically, like, encourage people to do it, and it's like,
and you're then shame them for doing so.
Yeah. You're shamed if you're not, but then, like, it also just tries to make you self-conscious and ashamed for doing it. And it's just like, come on, guys. This is not...
Make up your damn mind. Stop playing both sides against the middle.
Asexuals are ostracized for it.
That too, yeah.
People find themselves in unhappy relationships because they feel forced to do it, and so on and so forth, and it sucks.
Yeah, and then again, there's the whole toxicity of stressing attractiveness over, like, compatibility. Like I was saying, if you're not genuinely interested in your partner, like if you find your partner like telling you about their day or about their hobbies or whatever, if you find that boring, if you're not interested, you're not a good couple. Like my girlfriend, was her favorite board game is Twilight Imperium, which is this extremely complicated, difficult to learn, just a whole big thing. And it was giving me trouble at first, but I took the time and I put in the effort to learn how to play it so that I could play it with her, because I like my girlfriend and I want to share in the things that she enjoys.
And, like, you don't even have to just enjoy what they enjoy. You just have to be willing to listen to them, like, info dump and whatnot.
Yeah, that's also fine, but, the point is, like, show an interest. Don't just, like, pretend and then badmouth them for talking about it. Like, again, if you're not genuinely interested in your partner, why are you even together?
Nova, that's love. We're talking about breeding. These are two completely different things.
I guess, but, like, they're...
Which is definitely, I'm sure, is part of the main joke of this episode. That they are trying to blend these two things together, with love and breeding, which admittedly we do as well, when in reality they are very different things. Oftentimes they are very closely intertwined, but there is very much a dividing line, and animal breeding methodologies is kind of the deciding factor in that sort of thing. It's like, this is what animals do, this is what humans do. And then they have this sort of episode that really kind of blends these two concepts. Like, well, what if it worked somewhat more like this than it did like this? And that's where a lot of the humor comes from this episode. So I think this is actually a really, really funny episode if you look at it in that particular way.
Yeah, it has a lot of really good jokes. I just don't really care for the whole core of it. Like, it's nice, there's a lot of good jokes. It's nice exploring Zoidberg and his culture. I just... there's so much here that grates, you know what I mean? But you can probably tell by now.
And of course, then, like, Fry and Zoidberg are not completely innocent in this episode when, like, Leela's talking with, I forget what Zoidberg's...
Edna.
When she's talking with Edna, is like, you don't need to care about that, you just need to care about the fact that he's a doctor. And he's like, you too, Leela?
Yeah, like, everyone's shallow in this episode.
Oh, hell yeah.
Which is fitting, because they live along a beach.
But Tish.
Ooh. So actually, speaking of the date, I just want to bring up a great background gag there. Did you notice that the restaurant they're eating at is called Red Primate?
Yeah.
For the land food lover in you.
That's great. Just, and then, you have the whole climax of the episode. You mentioned the Glawplach, which is an obvious riff on that, that one Star Trek episode where Spock and Kirk fight in a similar combat ritual. And then the Decapodian national anthem is even just the Star Trek fight music. And then you even have Fry garroting Zoidberg with a nutcracker, which feels like a deliberate nod to that episode.
A clawcracker, actually.
Yeah.
Like, that was a great scene. That was a very enjoyable little shout out there.
He just cuts Fry's arm off, which is really unexpected. Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Surprisingly violent for a Futurama episode, honestly.
It's dark. Yeah, just overall, I think this episode has a lot of good jokes, but I just don't care for the core of it.
Yeah, I'm about the same. Like, there's nothing wrong with hookups, but, for long-term stuff, actually care about a partner.
Yeah, and for your quick hookups, use contraception.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm gonna go send a message off to my girlfriend and just, tell her I like her. Just because I kind of want to do that now.
I need to call Robo-Rooter.
Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your three voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Ian Valerie. The theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod. You can hear more episodes of Space Podcast 3000 on YouTube or at soundcloud.com/spacepod3k. You can support the show and listen to new episodes a full week early at patreon.com/spacepod3k. Follow us on Twitter at spacepod3k. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew see double in The Lesser of Two Evils.